Hello everybody and welcome back for the snooker action. This time it's the round of 32 and once again it's the world number 1 up against the world number 33 after both Kyron Wilson and John Chop managed to get through tough fixtures against Anthony McGill and Oliver Lyons respectively. This time is going to be, well, those two facing off another opponent. This time is going to be Jackson Page for Judd, of course famous for making 2 147s in a single match at the Crucible last season. And is it going to be just as much of a difficulty of a test as it was with Anthony McGill there in round 1 for Judd Trump? Certainly would expect to see some attacking snooker being played by both of the players. You know, Jackson Page is probably known already on the Home Nations Tour for knocking out some of the best players in the world there. You could talk about the likes of, well, Sean Murphy and Neil Robertson that he managed to do that too. And this time it's going to be Judd Trump to break off. So nice little start there for him. And all of a sudden straight away there is something that I didn't really expect to see, is the position being closed up there. And all of a sudden Jackson Page and Judd Trump have to try and develop the black and the pink here. Both of these colours are currently unavailable there for them. And Jackson Page just uses the red that Trump has left for him on the top part of the table and changes the direction of the cue ball and the red. Goes the turn back to Judd there. So this time Trump has got a nice little invitation there for him to spread the pack underneath the pink. I think he caught the red just under the pink, which I don't think it would have been the ideal case for him, but in the end it's a nice little cannon off the yellow as well. And going to be positioning Jackson Page with a little bit of a tricky shot. You can see Trump still probably will be a massive favourite for the tournament, even though we still have the defending champion of the Belfast that managed to defeat Judd Trump in the final last year. Very much Kyron Wilson and Judd Trump trailing titles in between each other for the majority of last season. Of course, the Belfast tournament last year wasn't an exclusion there. We're going to have the referee of Tatiana Wollaston as well get us through this match. And whilst we have a safety battle on our hands, you can mention the fact that we still haven't lost a massive top seed since Zhao Xington was knocked out in the opening round by Jordan Brown. But, you know, shots like that you have to be careful with if you're Judd Trump, because he's gone for the red really aggressively there in towards the left corner. In the end, I don't think he's given anything easy away to Jackson Page, apart from maybe a red in towards the yellow pocket. But it was one of those bit careless shots there in terms of the power that Trump applied to the shot. And once again, I think the fact that the black is covered up, the pink is still not in a perfect position there for Page, is going to be more of an advantage there to him. And this time, Page just plays through the red there, trying to send it towards the yellow pocket, and it's going to be the case this time around, as he gets himself lined up for the pink in towards the left middle there. Nice little shot by him. So the position's still, you know, apart from you take the black out of the equation, and you still have no other issues than that. I think he's got a nice little cluster of reds to try and go further and later into the break. But for now, you just try and take advantage of the ones that are already in nice position. It's going to follow by a rest shot now in towards the right corner there. I think you can try and play for the pink this time around. And if you can't do that and the angle's not going to be there for him on the cue ball, you can always try and apply a bit more backspin and send the white towards the blue there. But the rule number one was not to miss the red there. And I mean, clearly taking an eye off the pot there, Jackson Page. And it's going to be costly there for him this time around, because, you know, it's those types of shots that you can't really afford to miss. And it's chance given away there to Judd Trump very, very quickly, after it looked like Trump was the one, you know, that made the mess of the position. And Page only manages to score 7 points out of the chance that he had. And it's a chance to the world number one. Talk about the world number one. You know, the world number two, Karen Wilson, had a very, very difficult fixture up against Oliver Lyons there. In the end, managed to turn a 2-3 deficit in his favour and win a very, very nervy decider there, where Wilson had a big cushion gap there of 43 points. In the end, he's gone for probably the red that he shouldn't have gone for in towards the right middle. Missed that one. And, you know, Oliver Lyons was presented with a great chance, but ultimately couldn't quite get the green off the rest, which would have had him set up on the last available red. This time it's Judd Trump at the action, after the world number two managed to respond to the challenge from Judd Trump and progress to the second round. Trump will try and take it one step further there and, you know, make it into the third round. Very important for him to try and keep an eye on the position there, because we've seen him run out of position quite a few times against Anthony McGill yesterday, and we're hoping to see a bit of an improvement on that. But in the end, yeah, he barely managed to get that red in towards the middle, and therefore the angle was awful there for him. Runs himself out of position on the pink, and probably going to send a yellow in towards the left-hand cushion and put himself in a safe position there. But ultimately, I think it's not going to be too costly at this stage there, because there's a red there for Trump to be mindful about, unless he decides to send the cue ball on towards the black book cushion. I mean, that could work for him if he just has the blue in between the red, but he's actually quite close to the green pocket, because you don't really want to show that red to Jackson Page. But Trump clearly deciding that he's got no other option there than to indeed push the yellow on towards the left-hand cushion. And so once again, we see a replay of the red that he missed previously. This time, we'll have to be careful on the next chance that will be presented to him, because so far both players managing 7 and 8 points respectively of each other. And right now it's a nice little shot there by Jackson Page as he gets the cue ball on towards the bulk area. And Trump hasn't got too many reds to try and deal with. I think he can just about see the edge of the one closest to the right-hand cushion. but has to be very careful not to send the cue ball too close to the right corner pocket, and therefore, he was trying to do it as thin as possible, and conceding 4 points on the foul there for Jackson Page. I think he'll be put back exactly where he was. Certainly will be the case. Missed that one by very little margin there, but it certainly is enough to have Jackson Page not even consider a shot that was available to him towards the right corner, because of the pace misjudgment from Judd, but he didn't manage to take it, and it's going to be attempt number 2 that's going to lead to the same outcome there. So Jackson Page will most certainly ask Trump to try and do the same thing here. After he tried to go for the red, very much the same trajectory line, but very much the same miss, and I think that Callum Wallason will warn Judd Trump before he takes his shot that he will lose the frame, and that is the case. So Trump is just checking to see if there's going to be another option for him, because surely he can't take the same risk there, because it will be a frame to his opponent if the referee will have to call the miss for the 3rd time in a row. So very much an interesting and important shot now for Trump, as it switches the run of play there, gets the cue ball on towards the black ball cushion, and has the red just about roll enough there to make sure it's not playable for Page in towards the right middle. But still going to be a bit of an issue for Trump, because this time Jackson Page can add some of the backspin to send the cue ball dead on the black ball cushion, but decides not to do that. Just rolls the cue ball towards the black and forces Trump to take a cushion first shot there. Reminder, we're still going to have John Higgins, if you talk about the big names, being in action. And the player that can face either Jackson Page or Judd Trump is going to be, or potentially Guy Wilson there against Martin O'Donnell. That's going to be a very interesting match there. And the winner, of course, will face either one of these two in the last 16. Guy Wilson has got a little tendency this season of, seeing Judd Trump on the knockout stage. He's met him once at the Wuhan Open last 16. And, it was actually Wilson that managed to progress further and got himself into a final, just about losing on a decider to Xiao Guodong. As Trump will have a chance now to try and take that red that I mentioned very close to the right middle out of the game there, but catches the green and very nearly catches the cue ball as well with that red. So was taking a risk shot at some extension there. This time Jackson Page is going to be a bit awkward to try and bridge over the brown, in case of trying to go for the cross double on the right hand side, which was available to him. But because of the brown, I think he has to go for the remote red on the left hand side of the table, try and push it towards the right corner pocket and get the cue ball somewhat close to the green pocket itself. So far it's nice slow play there from both of the players. I wouldn't say we've seen some major mistakes. We've seen 2 inaccuracies from Trump and Page running themselves. Well, Trump running himself out of position on the pink, and obviously Page missing an easy shot on the rest. So far now, both players are trying to be careful, make sure that, the next chance that actually comes in the frame is going to be theirs for the taking. But this could be a chance for Page, because it's not necessarily the bad shot that Trump has played, but he was trying to push one red into the other. Therefore, the second red has gone quite close to the right corner pocket, and it's all about if Page can try and navigate the cue ball around the black and the red and get himself nicely onto the bulk area. And well, the answer is yes, he can. And how far is the cue ball going to travel? Doesn't want it on the cushion, and wants it to be available to be playing for the green. I think it's just about okay to take this green on there into the yellow pocket. So we've still got 115 points on the table. So therefore 4 reds have been taken out of the game already. And well, Page has to try and send the cue ball down the table here. And in goes the green. But catching the blue on the edge wasn't the plan there for him, surely. And that is going to lead to himself running out of position. He's now leading by 11 points there to Judd Trump, but ultimately still 115 on the table, unless Page decides to take the red. Very close to the right corner pocket. I mean, it's actually more difficult than the one that he's missed previously on the rest, but, you know, I think compromised by the fact even more that the black is not going to be waiting for him in towards the left corner. So has to set off for the pink into the left middle, which makes the positional shot even more difficult. But I don't think, well, as I say, was working really hard for this opportunity there, Page. He got it fair and square off Trump. Little misjudgment on the safety, so he has to try and capitalize on those mistakes. But ultimately he has to make this red in, and he will make this red in. Really nice shot with the rest there. Pretty much no hesitation. And a nice little line on the pink as well. In towards the left middle. If you can just guide this red in, the pink in, sorry. I think the trajectory on the next thread is going to be there for him. So he just has to be very, very careful in terms of not running himself out of position. As he gets the pink in nicely. So, I mean, has he judged this well there, Page? Because the referee is checking to see if the pink is going to go back on his spot. I think that would have been the plan there for Page. But is he going to be compromised by this pink? Don't think that's going to be the case. And nicely judged there by Page, because it was very important for him to try and keep that pink exactly where he was. But also try and, you know, get the cue ball so that he could actually see the red in towards the left corner. As he managed to get all of these issues right there for him. This time just having a look to see what the next thread is going to be. So he's got 3 more available that you can try and take in towards the middle or the corner pockets there. But ultimately it's all about which one's going to come next. And, well, I mean, he's gone for the pink really aggressively there. And surprised to see that from Page. You know, it was a very difficult shot for him to try and take on with that pink. In towards the left middle in the end. Don't think he's going to be too happy with himself. And, well, Trump has got himself a nice little chance now to try and accelerate away from everything here, really, because he can try and free up the black here by sending this red in towards the right corner. But that's not going to be the case there. Misjudgment once again from Judd Trump. Could have played this a lot better in terms of, you know, he got more power on the cue ball. He would have been nicely on the black, but instead he has to take the blue as a safety shot and get the cue ball in towards sort of bulk line area to be shared with the pink. And we have to go back to square one there for Trump, but ultimately being 18 points behind now with only 91 points on the table. You know, at this stage you can actually have those little gaps mounting for you. And for now, Jackson Page needs to start off with a good safety to his name, and he's not going to do that. So in the end, the safety that Trump has played has actually done him a good favour there, because Jackson Page is going to leave him a red in towards the left corner, which I'm pretty sure Trump is going to say, thank you very much, I'll try and take that. So 18 points behind is going to turn into 17 points behind, and just has to have the cue ball find a way in towards the green, you would think, but ultimately catches the brown full ball on the way down the table. Don't think that would have been the plan once again there for Trump, because you know, had to find another route there, an alternative without catching either pink or brown. In the end, is going to be 1 more point scored there for Trump. So, you know, the 10 points that he actually scored was 4 reds and a pink in towards the left middle. So he's going to try and line up a snooker here for Jackson Page, but to be fair to him, I think he managed to do quite well. Don't think there's an angle for Page to try and send the cue ball in towards the left-hand side of the table. Therefore, he has to consider going back for the bulk line, or at least sort of doing it with 2 cushion escape. And, I mean, yeah, he's nowhere near that shot and the line that he was taking on there. And he's going to leave a red there for Trump in either left corner or left middle. So once again, the 2 safety shots that Trump has played previously, after not being able to have himself lined up for the colour after porting a red, I'm going to do him a nice little favour. And Chump gets the red in towards the left corner. Guides the cue ball in towards the ball carrier. This time around is going to be perfectly on the brown. And he's got a remote red waiting there for him in towards the right corner. And he's just checking to see if the cluster of 3 reds just above the black spot, at least one of them is going to be potable, which it looks like he is. Looks like he's going to be waking there for him. Now it's going to free up a chance to put the black on his spot there. The blue's going to be there or about. And of course, right now he's only got 2 colours to try and work with. You know, the brown and the green. With the remaining 4 being on the cushions or just out of position. But once again there, he's very scrappy. Frame from both players' perspective. We're barely seeing them get a red colour and a red combination. Once again there, a straightforward shot from the brown. As Judd play with too much power and get himself into a really awkward shot on this red to try and cut it in towards the corner pocket. In the end, he is going to do that. So it's a nice shot. Well played there by Chomp as he gets himself lined up for the green this time around. So, of course, didn't have the angle to send the cue ball down the table. And in the end, he's going to have himself lined up on the green. So all about trying to get the cue ball down the table once again there and try and sort of make it stick there. But the line with the cue ball is taken. I don't think he's going to favour Judd because he's probably going to have himself snookered. So, yeah, not nice there from Chomp. You know, he was making way too many errors at that time. And this time he's still going to be behind after, you know, a break of 9, which is going to be second highest in the match. Probably says it all about the opening frame. Once again there, Chomp has to take avoiding action and just play a safety shot, send the cue ball to the top part of the table. Page will try and respond by a shot of a similar type. And catches the green to his favour there to make sure that Chomp is going to be pretty much dead snooker on. Don't think he can try and swerve around the reds because, you know, he has to catch them perfectly. So probably has to use the right hand cushion first. And try and get the cue ball in towards the main cluster of reds. But, you know, has to be very gentle in terms of power. And judge the pace of the cue ball really nicely there at that time. Once again, the players haven't really struggled with safeties at all there. It was all about the break building that, you know, we haven't actually seen from any of them. You know, such high scoring players. One of them is the world number 1, hit a maximum last week at the Xi'an Grand Prix. And the other one has made 2 maximums in a single match there at the World Championship qualifiers. And still, they're unable to produce anything higher than the break of 12 points here between the two of them. So once again, Chomp just checking to see if the trajectory of the red is going to be in favour of him as he tries to send it towards the blue. It's a really nice shot there from Chomp in terms of, you know, he's managed to keep all of the reds really low on the table. That's going to be a massive advantage there for him because it just leaves Page with a lot less of a room there. And, you know, more chance of catching one of those reds with a cue ball. In the end, that was the case, but because of the touch being so minor there, Page managed to escape with it and still get the cue ball up the table and into the safe zone. So one of the reds has gone remotely available there for Chomp, but ultimately, yeah, he just made the mess of that shot, Chomp. And he's very lucky that he actually managed to get the red that he was playing into a really safe area. Still leaves away a chance for Jackson Page to try and take the rest shot in towards the right corner. But this is one of those cuts that it's probably not really worth taking it on because it's still a really difficult shot there for him to make. And if you miss it by a millimetre, you're going to give it away there likely. So let's see what his reaction is going to be. And if he does make it stick, is he going to land himself on the colour finally? So he's gone for the red. But once again there, I think the brown is going to be in the way of the thing. So might be a nice little invitation there for him to try and make really difficult snooker for Chomp. To force him go a long way around there. He's got the line of the pink, green and brown very much bunched up there in towards the green pocket, and with 59 points on the table, still nothing to separate the two players, only 5 points in between the two of them. So Page is having a look to see if we're going to have the shot on the pink that he can try and take. Send the cue ball down the table once again there. So it looks like he is considering to take that shot on, and he did do that. But in the end, he's going to do him more damage than good there because misses the pink. And all of a sudden, the brilliant shot in terms of the positional play that he just played is been given away there to Judd Trump. So, he's got a red in towards the left corner. The black is there for him. But with this shot, preferably, he has to try and develop a couple more of those reds. Therefore, sacrifice the position on the black there. But in the end, it's a brilliant shot there by Trump. Probably one of the best that we've seen sort of throughout the entire match here from Trump at the early stage, as he frees up at least one red in towards the right corner, and the other two all of a sudden are going to be in a playable position as well. So I think Trump was trying to get himself lined up there on a little plant to use that red that is basically covering the right corner pocket, but doesn't look like that's going to be the case this time around. So Trump just having a look to see if that red is going to be available after the next shot. And therefore, I think he's tried to go for the blue. But, I mean, once again there, it's a break of 7 points. And it looks like that's going to be the end there of Judd Trump. At least on the current stage. He can still try the blue on in towards the left middle. But that's going to be a complicated shot there. Let alone talk about getting the cue ball down for the reds. But the line seems to be looking good there for Trump. And in the end, it's a difficulty escape there for him. Once again, has to get the red in towards the left corner. Get himself on the top side of the blue this time around. And get the cue ball down the table once again there. So this time it's a lot better. So, the recovery shot was done on the previous blue. This time he'll try and do some more damage of playing the blue that he's got himself lined up on. It just has to be very precise in terms of the position for the red. He's 13 points clear now. So he still needs the red and the yellow that he can try and take in towards its own pocket there. But it's a nasty shot for you to try and play. And had to play it with a lot of power. Is he going to be rewarded for it though? I don't think that's going to be the case. Because, he tried to accelerate the cue ball in towards the yellow there. Potentially going for the blue there, but I think he has to go for the brown here. But ultimately, it's all about sort of the yellow that Trump has to try and cannon the cue ball in towards. Hello, everyone. Hello. Yes, we've got Get Pressure you in the chat. So 18 points now is the gap between Trump and Page. And ultimately, still 27 on the table. I think this is a nice little chance there for Trump to get the cue ball in towards the pink there. And in the end, it's going to be a bit in no man's land. Didn't get the double, which I don't think he would have been too eager on trying to get, because that would have snookered him on the next shot at the green. But this is still possible for Jackson Page to try and take this position into sort of his hands there. As he gets the yellow off the table there and very much in towards the green. I think Trump can try and use this one as a little invitation to line up a snooker. Page certainly expecting some sort of danger there from Trump as he goes back to his chair in no time. Always a sign that, the player's not necessarily satisfied with the shot that he's played. But, if that logic is actually true, you would expect Trump sprinting back to his chair now. Because, I said it was a nice little invitation there for him. In the end, he's just left Jackson Page with a straightforward opener with the yellow. I think it's going to be a lot more difficult for him to try and get the cue ball lined up for the green. But ultimately, it's a position that yellow should have never been in for Trump after the shot that he had to play. Therefore, so Page has to just focus on trying to get the yellow in and take it one issue at a time there. But to say, that was a struggle. And in the end, it's not going to be the case there for him. because Judd Trump is going to have an easy yellow into the same pocket there, and after a lengthy first frame that, has been taking pretty much half an hour here, looks like it is going to be Judd Trump that is actually going to come out victorious. Only needs the green. That is currently over its own pocket for the frame ball. And he'll get himself lined up for the brown once again. Not too nice in terms of the line there for him. But as he doesn't have to worry about the next positional shot, he can just try and roll the brown in and send the cue ball in towards the blue zone. So 27 points clear with 18 on the table. There's no way back there for Jackson Page. And nearly a fluke there from Trump on the blue, as he will miss this shot. But, I say no way back. 27 points with 18 on the table. I didn't really expect Jackson Page to be back here playing. Yeah, and that's going to be the case. But it looks like it's only going to be for one shot. I don't know why he's done that. But ultimately, it is going to be the opening frame to Judd Trump there. And Jackson Page has to concede after an early snooker attempt didn't really go his way. So, it was a very important frame for Trump to win because, he lost the frame to McGill in similar sort of circumstances. We've seen Oliver Lyons and Karen Wilson trade frames like that today. Si Jiao and Kai Watchalong today had a similar sort of frame as well. Ultimately, it was the world number 14 that managed to come out on top in quite a dominant performance there in the end. In terms of the other matches, by the way, Chris Wakely and Tom Ford are sharing table number 3 there. Tom Ford is currently very much looking like he's going to be the favourite, with him taking the opening frame there. Chris Wakely still seems to be struggling for his form. And Tom Ford once again there on the break. And Yuan Sijun against Long Seok-young. That got himself around to walkover there over Mark Williams. That, of course, managed to stay at home for 1 week of extra rest there after being victorious at the Xi'an Grand Prix. Very much deserved break there for him. And, well, let's see if we're still going to have the world number 1 and 2 progress further down the stage. John Higgins produced a wonderful performance against Louis Heathcote in the first round. We're very much looking forward to see more of him against Pang Jung-soo later on today. In fact, it's going to be the match that is going to start as soon as Judd Trump and Jackson Page will finish their encounter. And, the way the first frame has gone, you're not necessarily going to say that's going to happen in matter of minutes. As once again, you can just draw the attention of it being such a sort of unorthodox format with only 3 tables still at bay ever since the start of the tournament. You always see, whether it was the Xi'an Grand Prix, the Wuhan Open, the Saudi Arabian Masters, or even the English Open at the home nations, you always seem to see 4 tables at such an early stage. But that's not going to be the case at the Northern Ireland Open. And, to be fair, the schedule was managed quite nicely by them. And we are going to have Judd Trump now to get the second frame on the way against Jackson Page, as he managed to come out victorious off a very difficult encounter there for him. So try and make sure that tendency is going to be there with him. You would like a little whitewash there of a top 33 player. I know he's not quite top 32, but still, the way Jackson Page has actually managed to come out in the English Open, progress to the quarter-final stage, where he lost out to Mark Selby at that time. I think you very much enjoy a dominant win there for him, but he still is 3 frames away from doing that. And it's not an early start that Jackson Page would need, though, in second frame. As, Trump left a little gap there for him to try and take on the red in towards the left corner. In the end, he's missed that one, and he's left a double on for Trump. And he's certainly in the playing mood now, Judd Trump, because he's gone for the red, and he's played it brilliantly at a double, as he gets himself on the brown. So Judd Trump is here to play, and hopefully we're going to see, well, a little bit more in terms of the break building stuff than we've seen in the opening frame. Judd Trump pretty much straight away there telling me not to curse him too early, because he nearly potted the white in towards the left middle. But ultimately he's still going to be alright on the red in towards the left corner. So just a little bit more distance of the cue ball for him to try and go through. And therefore the pace has to be larger on this shot, and therefore the risk of missing the shot was going to be bigger. And once again, as we have seen in the opening frame, it does seem like Trump is still not over those struggles. And it's the break of 5 points. That is going to be the end of Judd Trump. And back to the table steps Jackson Page, but only for a single shot there. I mean, this is probably one of the lowest quality matches that I've seen, especially if you talk about the world number 1 and the world number 33 featuring. You know, it's turning into a little bit of an amateur match. Once again, it was a brilliant chance for Jackson Page, but he didn't even manage to take the red in towards the right corner. But in his defense, it's not like Trump is playing too much better. And, well, once again there, it's the world number 1 that will have one more chance now of trying to get himself on the black. As he does do that in towards the left corner. So he's now 13 points clear. Still an awful lot of on points on the table here, but you know, if he just tries to take this red away from the black there, send the cue ball for the blue one more time, he's going to have a red waiting there for him on the top part of the table as well, and decelerate the cue ball enough there so he can try and line himself up for a similar sort of shot and send the cue ball down the table there. So sort of use those 2 reds as a freebie there for him, and then try and mount some more points on towards the black there. Once again, the red is in there for Trump. Tries to get the blue in towards the left middle, and I think he's not going to go into the punch just yet. He's got one more red to try and take away into the corner, but that's not the way to try and have himself lined up for the red, because it almost felt like he was actually trying to aim himself for the black here, which he can't actually play after playing the blue. Landed absolutely nowhere this red, and I mean, he's probably still going to take it on, but the chances of him actually making the shot probably, you know, gone down from 90% to about 15% or so, and which is why even Trump can't take the shot on, and just has to send the cue ball up the table once again there. So the break of 23 points as his highest of the match will stand so far, and Trump has to go back to his chair and settle for giving away the initiative there to Jackson Page. So once again, getting the cue ball down the table. I think you could try and split the main pack of the reds here. It'll be helpful there for him, especially with him playing catch-up. And I mean, sending the cue ball so close to the jaws of the pocket wouldn't be helpful though. And so once again, it's Jackson Page that actually finds himself pretty lucky here to not give away anything easy to Trump. This time it's a safety shot that he actually manages to struggle on. And Trump probably has to respond with a safety of his own, unless he can find the red in towards the left or right corner. And yes, he can, is the answer. I mean, brilliant shot in terms of taking the pot on, but not so brilliant in terms of actually landing himself for the pink there in towards the yellow pocket. I think he can try and take this on, but you know, it's not an easy shot for him to actually make in towards the pocket, and ambitious there from Trump, and it's not going to be rewarded this time around, because it's going to be rewarding Jackson Page here. Once again, just taking that extra millimeter of a shot there for him, and pot success for Trump has gone way below average. I mean, it's 57% for Jackson Page, but it's still 85% for Judd Trump. And it's been horrible, especially if you take into account the kind of shots that he seemed to take in on and running himself out of position. Of course, it's pretty much a free chance now to Jackson Page as he gets himself lined up for the black there. You know, if Trump's highest break of the match is 23 points, doesn't even get that well and that good for Jackson Page there. He's only managed to have 12 points scored in quick succession. Once again, landing bit awkward on this red, but should be alright in terms of trying to breach over the red there. Just has to generate some of the power naturally there, and get himself well lined up on the black there towards the left corner, therefore trying to generate some space in between the cue ball and the cushion. but doesn't seem to fancy the shot of trying to bridge over red, so has to go for a rest shot, which is going to be a lot more difficult there for him. Not even in terms of trying to get the red in, which I still think he will, but getting on the next black is going to be a problem there for him. And he cannon the cue ball in towards the red there, pretty much got the perfect touch, but still not going to have a nice little position here on the black. But the good news for him is the red that he actually cannoned into has gone very kindly on towards the left middle pocket there for him. So he can certainly try and exploit that later on. Of course, that red is blocking him from trying to access the pink, which was missed by Chomp previously. So roll the black in. If you can find a space for the cue ball to try and pop that red in towards the middle. But I did say if you can find a space, with the body language of Jackson Page, he may just not actually see this red. You know, he only needs an edge of it to try and drop it in towards the corner. As you know, he does manage to produce the highest break of his campaign here. 16 points on the board. Very much like to have that continue, at least for a couple of more shots. He may have to take another red in towards the corner. And the cue ball's going to be there for him. And the cue ball is going to follow the example of the red. And even though he's played a really nice shot in terms of potting, the red is going to give 4 points away there to Chomp. And his break of 16 points is going to end there. And the red that was waiting there for him on towards the left middle that he couldn't actually see there on the previous shot, this time is going to be waiting for Judd Chomp here. As Chomp gets this one in. It's a brilliant shot in terms of making the pot there, but you know, he should have applied some sort of backspin there, or at least played this one with less power. Chomp was very eager to get up from the shot, which usually is a sign that he's misplayed it badly, but in the end it's still going to be alright on the red. This is now 22 points clear, 83 on the table, and you know, when I say 22 points at this stage with the way the match has gone, this could be a very significant amount, because if you look at the highest break of Jackson Page, he hasn't managed to have a 22 yet. So this time Chomp still being level on the position, having one more red in towards the right corner as he gets himself nicely for the black this time though. So still 75 on the table, all 5 of those remaining reds are going to be there for him. So all about trying to make this black in. The top spin applied will get the cue ball up the table, but once again I don't think Chomp is going to be happy with something on his side, because he just keeps on running the cue ball for the shot off the blue there. It seems to always misjudge the pace, whether it's going to be too much too little, but it's not looking like Judd Chomp's performance so far. It's been a better in terms of his recovery pace in the second frame though, because he still manages to take this red in towards the right corner. And you could just see with the face expression shot, you could almost feel it like when you midway through the shot, you could feel like having hit the cue ball as well as you could have. In the end, Chomp gives him a little bit of an awkward shot to try and take in towards the left corner. This time trying to play for the blue there. And getting the cue ball very close in towards the cushion. But ultimately, it's not going to be a massive problem there for him. So, you know, the blue will put him 42 points clear with 51 on the table. So the next red will make sure he's 43 points clear with only 43 on the table, which is going to be enough there for him to guarantee himself a respot at least. But of course, no slowing down from Chomp at this stage. And he just rolls the red in, has himself lined up for the black in towards the left corner. Now 43 behind and 43 remaining. Jackson Page could have easily been going into the third frame, being 2-0 up there against Judd Chomp, but ultimately it's the world number 1 that managed to minimize the struggles there for him in terms of damage limitation, working out really nicely there for him. The break of 36 being by far the highest that we've seen from both players in this encounter so far. Can't quite make it a century break, of course, with the amount of reds that have been potted previously in the frame. But it's not going to matter too much there for him, because I think a nice little 50 plus break will do. As he gets himself lined up for the red in towards the left corner. So going to be on the wrong side of the blue this time, which is going to be nice there in terms of getting the position on the yellow. And a straightforward 6-color clearance, you would think, but Chop has got something else on his mind, and this time it's a perfect shot there played, really nicely on the pink, which Chomp missed previously in the frame. He's given a chance away there to Jackson Page, but the Welshman couldn't take the chance, and this time you could actually see Chomp enjoying more of this one. So 83 points, plays 16 there for Page. Gets himself lined up for the green. He's going to miss this one though. So it's going to be a break of 53 points, but in the end, it's still a 50 plus break there, and it's a nice little start of trying to rediscover his form for Judd Chomp, which he ultimately will very much need there. If he is to progress to the last 16, he's going to have to find a better performance than that against either Martin O'Donnell or Gary Wilson. So far, Jackson Page still finds himself on the receiving end of things, as he's now going into the third frame, trailing by 2 frames to nil. The GGs could be a quick one. Well, I mean, it's not going to be in terms of the time already, because it's been 47 minutes for the opening 2 frames. The first opener was a massive playmaker in there. It was a really slow burner in terms of the safety battles, all the errors and misjudgments. Something that we actually seen in frame number 2 as well, but in the end it was Judd Chomp that managed to capitalise on the second chance that came his way after Jackson Page potted a nice little red in towards the left middle, but didn't plan to have the cue ball follow up the red and give the ball in hand to Chomp, with one red being over the left middle. That's left an opener there for Chomp, which the world number 1 certainly said, "I'll try and take that, thank you very much." Produce a break of 53 points, which is going to be enough there for him to be going into the third frame with a nice little 2-0 cushion. I think he'll try and make sure that, if he has a chance there, he's going to try and have this frame and match done with as quickly as he can there. I think Tom Ford is going to have the same mindset up against Chris Wakelin, as he's now leading by 2 frames to nil. And just given away a chance, though, to Chris Wakelin, as he's now 36 points clear with 59 on the table, so Chris has to find his way back up there. Long Zok-Yeon, by the way, managed to equalise against Yuan Se-jun, so it's now 1 frame each out there. As once again, looking forward to seeing more of the world number 1 being actually in action there. It's been better in terms of the second frame performance if you compare it to something that we've seen in the opener, but it still has been way below average if you talk about what you would expect to see from Jackson Page and Judd Chomp, sort of on accumulation basis. Ultimately, it is Jackson Page's chance now to get himself off to a good start with a decent break off. As, he gets the cue ball down there. So a nice little shot in terms of not leaving any of the reds available there for Chomp. And I think he's potentially can see enough of the red to try and play a safety out of it. But I don't think he's going to try and take it in towards the left corner. I mean, the black is going to be there for him, to be fair. And, the thing about Judd Chomp is when he's got that 2 frames cushion to his name, he can try and go for those types of shots, but he clearly ain't feeling it just yet. And he has to send the red up the table there. And just try and do it. And just try and get the red into a safe position there. He's done quite well in that regard right now. As Jackson Page just has to see what is actually available there for him. I think he can try and take the red in towards the yellow pocket. I think that's probably what he had a nice little look at. Maybe he's managed to find a plan in towards the right middle. Ultimately, whatever he managed to find ain't going to be too much of a find there for him at that time, because he's going to miss their plans in towards the right middle and have himself lined up for a little bit of a scrappy shot there in the end. Judd Chomp can try and take this red away there from the right hand cushion, try and potentially make a double out of it. don't think he was actually trying to catch one more red there on the way in towards the left middle. Ultimately, ain't gonna pay the price just yet here, as you know, Pate has to try and maybe have a look in towards the yellow pocket, but surely he's not going to try and take it in towards the middle. The angle's simply not going to be there for him. It was the shot in towards the yellow pocket, but you know, those pockets are going to be tight there for him, especially with the way he's been playing so far. And the red is going to stay out on the table. And I think Judd is going to have a very similar type of shot in towards the same pocket there for him. Try and accelerate the cue ball, lining up for a shot at the pink. And try and produce enough of the cue power and cue accuracy there for him. As the line seems to be perfect there for him to actually get this red. But once again there, even though it's a brilliant pot from Judd Trump's point of view, he absolutely landing himself nowhere to be seen on this pink. So a shot in towards the left corner is available, but I mean, you almost would say that it's easier for you to actually take the blue in towards the yellow pocket as well and try and have himself lined up for a red in towards the left middle. But you know, when you take the red like that, it's difficult for you to make it two in a row there, but not if you're the world number one, because Judd Trump doesn't have the word difficulty when it comes to the snooker table, especially when he tries to rediscover his form. Once again there, it's back-to-back brilliant shots there for him, as he will indeed have himself lined up for a shot in towards the left middle. So just drop the red in and have himself lined up for the blue. The difficulty here is, though, he needs to make this work there for him in terms of getting the cue ball into the main bunch. But the pink being in the way, and there's been some sort of a gap there in between the pink and the reds, makes this shot a lot more difficult. But once again there, it's a lot better from Judd Trump's point of view, and I think he can call himself unlucky because he played this absolutely perfectly. And, you know, he could have not really played the shot any better there. He got the pink full in the ball there, full in the face. And he's still got a red in towards the right corner. But A, it's tricky because of the angle that he's got himself in. And B, he has to try and aim it towards the left part of the pocket there, not to catch the pink that has gone very close to it. And in the end, it's a shot well played there by Chomp. So, I mean, this is turning into a match that could be a quick one. As I say, not in terms of the time there, but in terms of the scoreline being, well, potentially threatening for 4-0 now, because you would expect Judd Trump to take this frame from here. The main difficulties have already been behind him now. Gets himself lined up on a perfect red in towards the left corner. As I mentioned previously, the pink is going to be there for him, but I think the Trump is going to try and leave that pink for the future in case he needs it. And for now, he'll try and spread those two reds just above the black here. By trying to play the black himself here. So get the cue ball lined up for a red. Nice shot there once again there. So signs of Judd Trump finally managing to rediscover his form. Brilliant shot into the yellow pocket. Still running himself out of position for the pink, but managed to recover at that time with nice little blue into the same pocket. And now producing a break of 27, by far something the highest that we've seen in the lower stages of the frames here. And, well, Jackson Page has to just think about all those chances that he's had previously to himself. And may still go on to regret it come the end of this frame and the match here. Because it could come very quickly there for him. And once again there, the play just demonstrating the mistake that he's made in the previous frame, just dropping the red nicely with a nice little shot in towards the left middle, but ultimately the cue ball followed up with it, and that has caused an issue there for him. Is that going to cause an issue for Judd Trump though? Because once again they're not going to be perfect on this pink, but I think he's going to be just about alright to actually take the pink on there. You can try and go for the black in towards the left corner as well, but I think the pink is going to be easier. And also he's going to have the cue ball lined up for the reds in towards the top part of the table. Nicely done there by Chomp. In fact, it probably is a perfect shot, just getting that nice little traction of the cue ball So having lined up, not quite straight on the red along the cushioning towards the yellow pocket, but having a little bit of the gap there, so that he doesn't have to play this shot with just as much power. And just as I was saying and complimenting him, he still misses that red, even though he didn't actually play with a lot of power. But the trouble not going to end there for Jackson Page, because even though he's got a nice little invitation of red in towards the yellow pocket, I mean, he does have some difficult reds to try and make his way through here. And ultimately, when you're 40 points down, even though it's still 99 points on the table, you're facing yourself with an issue of trying to be clinical, which probably is the only adjective that you wouldn't use to describe Jackson Page's performance so far. And a nice little starter will be for him to try and get this red comfortably in towards the yellow pocket, have himself lined up for the blue. And as he gets himself in amongst the colours there, you can try and go for the blue into the right middle. But ultimately, I think he'll try and consider the brown or the green in towards the green pocket. So brown it is going to be, because there's going to be one more red there that was previously missed there by Chomp. Waiting for Page to try and drop this one in. So 35 points is going to be the gap in between Chomp and Page right here, right now. So still 91 points on the table there for him. As I say, I don't think it's going to be a massive issue for Page in terms of the points amount. If he's going to take some cheap colours, he still should be alright to find his way. But the actual issues there for him are probably going to start on those three reds. Two of them quite close to the yellow pocket, and one more being pretty much dead on the cushion there, next to the black ball spot there. But for now, he's got four reds that are going to be quite easy there for him to try and make his way through. And, you have to say, it all came down to that mistake from Chomp, ultimately being short on the pink, had to send the cue ball into the top part of the table. Couldn't make usage of the easy reds that Page is enjoying himself right now on. And ultimately was just one shot too many for Chomp to try and play. Even though he's still dominating the poll there by an absolute, margin of a mile there. 88% to 12. I think he'll be compromised by the fact that he's number one in the world ranking system, but also by the fact that he's currently having a 2-frame cushion that could be, reduced in half there for Jackson Page if he does manage to make this break, the one that counts there for him. But if he wants to do that, he has to be playing better shots than this, because you can congratulate him on making the highest break of the match so far. But I think he's landed very, very straight on this red. Has to power his way through there to get himself lined up for the black. And to be fair to him, it's it's mission accomplished there, because it wasn't easy, especially with the way he's been playing. He had to play that one with a lot of confidence and a lot of power. Gets himself nicely on this black here, so it's a nice little test that was passed there for him. Nearly messes up the black though on the previous shot. But ultimately, he's still in there or thereabout. Got himself lined up for a red into the left corner. The next colour will ensure he's going to be leading Trump by, a point or two. And I think he's going to need, he's certainly going to need all three of those reds with some sort of expensive colours. But ultimately, I think that's going to be what he actually is there for Page. So still trying to see the perfect line to get the cue ball lined up on the one probably further away from the cushion. Leave the one that is probably on the cushion till last, because you'll have a nice little angle to have in position for the next colour. Similar sort of quest that Oliver Lyons had to go through in his battle against Karen Wilson. We all know how that ended for Oliver Lyons there, and Jackson Page will hope to rewrite the history there for himself and not make the same mistake that Lyons did. You could always go back to that Shang Min Yu up against Guy Wilson match yesterday, which came down to the brown, and ultimately, it was a match ball miss there by Bin Yu a couple of times. So Jackson Page got himself lined up on this red in towards the yellow pocket. Try and accelerate the cue ball in for the ball colours. but has to make sure he's got an angle there for this colour to try and get himself set up for this last red in towards the yellow pocket. I think it just about has enough of the angle on this yellow to try and get the cue ball in for that red. Ultimately, I think he overplayed it slightly. Going to leave himself with an awkward angle on this rest. Going to be out of control here slightly. This is tricky, especially for a difference between 3-0 lead there and a 2-1 deficit. It's going to be a massive shot for him to try and take on, and it's probably the shot that wins him the frame there, barring the fact that he's going to actually get himself on the colour. I mean, he probably refuses the rest here, but that's a sign that he's not going to take the red on, and that is confirmation that he's not going to take the red on. So just trying to play it safe there, and hoping to find a nice little gap to get the cue ball in behind the black, and a brilliant shot in the end. It's a break of 51 points, so the second 50-plus break that we've seen in 3 of those frames. First one came from Trump with a value of 53 points, which basically won him that frame. Could this be a start of a frame-winning visit to Jackson Page here? Because this is not an easy snooker for Trump to make his way out of. And, the thing you have to worry about is not even the fact that you're going to give away 4 foul points. It's probably the fact that you actually risk of giving away a free ball there for him. But Trump is probably going to be quite lucky of catching the brown there, full ball, because that's given away for the cue ball to actually see that red, full ball, which doesn't allow Tatiana Wollaston to call free ball here. And it's just going to be attempt number 2 coming up for Trump. So only the cue ball to his spot, as the brown was on his spot there. So, yeah, the assistant referee will just try and guide the referee of this match to get the cue ball set up exactly as he was previously. But for Trump, I think he probably has to adjust the pace and the trajectory slightly. And you can see he's done that by trying to send the cue ball with lesser of a pace there. And how's the cue ball going to be? Is he going to be in behind the pink? And I think he's quite unlucky there, Trump, because he caught the red probably as well as he could have. But this is a chance number 2 there for Page. Probably similar in terms of the difficulty for the shot that he refused on with the rest. If he makes the red, very much should be the winner of this frame. But if he doesn't make this red in, he could put himself into all sorts of troubles here. And he is going to miss it. So where's the red going to finish there? And is Trump going to be able to see it? I think it's touch and go there, because he's having a good look at this Trump. I think he probably has to settle for a safety shot. So Page gets away with it, you would think there. And he does. So Trump just has to play a safety shot. In the end, it's still going to be a good one, because he gets the yellow and the green in between the red and the cue ball. So therefore not allowing Jackson Page to go for a straightforward cushion first shot in terms of catching the ball cushion first. Has to go for the right hand cushion. Probably plays this one with little pace. I say little, he hasn't actually played with little pace. Try to accelerate the red away from the cue ball. And once again there, as has been the case throughout the majority of this match, he's played the shot really, really nicely there. And Trump just has himself lined up for another safety battle here potentially, but I think he catches the red a bit too thick there. And is he going to get the cover on the brown? He's not really going to have the cover on the brown anyway. And that red is now available for Jackson Page. He's been getting away with those missed chances lately in this frame. This could be a nice little sign there for him to take one more chance. And what a chance it has been. Brilliant shot there by Jackson Page. And what a positional shot as well. Getting himself a perfect view of this black into left corner. Judd Trump has to probably feel like he was a bit unlucky not to end on that red previously, after Page missed a long shot in towards the yellow pocket. But ultimately he still has at least one frame cushion to his name. And it is going to be a one frame cushion only if Jackson Page manages to take this yellow in towards the green pocket. He's going to put him 25 points clear with 25 on the table. And the green being so close in the action as well. Surely he's going to be a matter of time until he gets the frame ball as well. And it is going to be at least one more frame there for Jackson Page to make his way into this match. You know, you have to start somewhere. And, you know, the task number one was not to start at 3-0. Because it would have been very much mission impossible. It's still mission doable now. As he gets himself a nice little clearance, you would think, of 34 points. 35 points, I should say. As if he wants to take the black on. A nice little shot on the ping, though. Really nice positional play. Needs to do more of that when the frame actually hasn't been won. He's going to try and rattle the black in. In the end, not going to have a total clearance, but ultimately it is going to be a frame to Jackson Page. Very important for him to try and do that sooner rather than later. And he's going to go for a bathroom break here. Judd Trump will stay in his chair. And it is now Judd Trump 2, Jackson Page 1. Going into frame number 4. And it's still all to play for. And the job is not yet done there for Trump. And, you know, Pang Jung-soo and John Higgins have to wait for their turn a bit longer. And in the other matches, we're having Tom Ford still with a really nice cushion there to his name of 3 frames to 1. As he managed to see off a 3-0 lead there, Chris Wakelin, to get himself a century on the board in frame number 4 there. So he was the player that actually started at the 3-0 deficit. Lonzo Hyun now is trailing by 2 frames to 1 to Yuan Sejun, but he's currently on the break himself there, so we could see a 2-all draw in that match. And of course, if you go through the fixtures that we had today, we're not going to see the repeat of the 2023 semi-final in the World Championship, because Luca Brissell has lost out to Stephen Maguire to set himself up for a draw with Si Jiahui in the last 16. The Chinese player himself managed to take a very dominant win of a Kai Wai Chong. And Zhang Anda, a first real surprise exit of today there, the world number 12. Won the opening frame up against Mark Davis, but still lost out by 1 frame to 4 there to the world number 59. Matthew Selt has lost out to Ryan Day in a close battle. And Ryan Day is going to have Karen Wilson up for company in the last and a round of 32. Ali Carter and Stan Moody once again there producing a brilliant performance in terms of it being a really high scoring match and going the distance yet again here. This time it was the captain that managed to come out on top, and Stan Moody has to exit the whole Nations campaign of the Northern Ireland this year. And as I say, when the 2 of the 3 tables are going to be finished, we're going to have a massive and a very interesting clash of Barry Hawkins, Aaron Hill and John Higgins against Pang Jung-soo there. And in the meantime, we get to return to the action on table number 2 for Judd Trump to try and re-establish a 2-frame cushion there to his name. Up against Jackson Page there, who has managed to find some sort of form there lately. It still was a convincing break of 51 points. That got him in with a chance there. Ultimately, it still was very much up for grabs there for any one of the players. But it was Page that took his chance. You know, it was a really difficult raid of a Lampard for him to try and take on. But he's managed to make it stick there for him. Now, he's going to have Judd Trump to start off frame number 4 in probably a different manner than he would have liked, especially after winning the opening 2 frames. As I say, one thing that Trump actually needs is a really comfortable win over someone like Jackson Page, especially in such a short formatted matches. Meanwhile, leaves a chance away for Jackson Page to try and take this red in towards the corner. But therefore, you know, it was a risky shot for him to take on. And he's missed it by a very, very little margin. And, you know, I think you would hope that he missed it by an absolute mile, because that is as close as it's going to get. And this red is now staying in the pocket for Judd Trump to try and take it. And he's now 1 point ahead there in the fourth frame, but ultimately having so many reds available there to him. At least a line of 3 of those on top of the black here, as he manages to develop the line in a better fashion there for him. And the face expression of Jackson Page on the previous shot probably says it all. You realise just the scale of that mistake and the amount of points that is probably going to cost him here. So Trump gets himself nicely on the black for the second time in his break. You know, he still has, as I mentioned, 3 reds available there to him. And the way the pyramid underneath the pink is actually set up here, it's probably going to be easy, or straightforward I should say, to get the cue ball into the main bunch of reds here from the black and try and have a couple of those set up in towards either left or right middle. I think preferably into the left middle, because I just think the room is going to be there for him. Watch what, guys? Charles, well, I think you mean the watch along, and the way to do that is just try and follow along with the chat there. Obviously not going to see the actual broadcast of the match, but ultimately I think it has been a much better second and third frames than what we've seen in the opening one. You know, very much a slow burner. But right now, Judd with the 23 points of a gap after an early mistake from Jackson Page, as he gets the cue ball into the main bunch here, gets himself at least 1 more red there to try and deal with, and ultimately just trying to get himself on the blue this time around. I don't think he's going to have the angle to have the cue ball set up for the black. Therefore, just gets himself onto the top part of the blue. By the way, the match time and the playing time has actually reached an hour just now. Therefore, it's going to be very interesting for us to actually see what is going to happen in the further display between the two players. But for now, it's actually been a nice little steady break there from Trump, because it's 29 points. But when you've had to deal with early struggles and both players have been missing some easy shots there, you don't have to take these things for granted now, because if he gets himself a break of 40 plus here, which is certainly going to be on the cards now with this blue being taken in towards the left middle, he's going to have 1 more red in towards the right corner, and after that he's going to have himself lined up on either black or blue to try and generate some pace into the main bunch and get the cue ball into the nice little available area and lined up on one of those reds. So I think you can just play through this shot with, you know, when you take these shots on with the rest, it just adds a little bit of difficulty there for you. So always easier for you to try and just play through this shot and get the cue ball lined up on the black there, rather than try and play it with mad pace there and screw back for the blue, because it's going to be really difficult for you to try and judge the pace. But to be fair to Trump, I mean, he has gone for the shot of trying to probably line himself for the blue here. Ultimately, he's probably going to have to take it from the yellow. Left-hand cushion waiting there for him. And try and split up those reds as much as possible. The yellow is in though. A nice little line from the cue ball, but not enough pace. So unless he gets lucky with his red being available, I think it's going to be the end of the break once again there. At a similar point to the previous frame. You know, when he was 40 points and he was done there for Jump. Now it's going to be 38 points. And looks like it's going to be done there for Jump once again. So just get the cue ball up the table. Try and push one of those reds in towards the left-hand corner. Left-hand cushion, I should say. But ultimately, be very mindful of that red in towards the right corner, because you don't want to show that to Jackson Page, because you know, he's been very dangerous with those long shots. He's taken quite a few of those already, and we'll say he's probably made around 60% of them. So Trump has to be cautious and try and make sure that, you know, he's going to be the player to actually get these chances. Once again, you can have a look to see if the cue ball could have travelled into the main bunch of reds with more power there. I think answers on a postcard probably could have there, but you know, wasn't as easy as it might sound. And I think Trump has actually not done enough there in terms of covering that red into the right corner. Jackson Page managed to take it, but still missed it on there. So He was always, aware of the fact that he was going to be the only red that he actually could give away there to Trump. Probably just about has given it away. To try and take it with a safe manner. Played in towards the yellow pocket. Therefore, Trump was certainly taking the risk with that shot, trying to push that red very close in towards the left middle by trying to send it from the ball cushion. It's still a doubtful fact if Page can actually see that red. Trying to actually play it in towards the middle. But as he was taking a cross double from that and playing in quite a decent safety, probably have to say he wasn't available at that time. And once again, we have to settle for some more shots of the safety battle. Trump has to be the one developing the reds here. I don't think he would have liked to see that. And especially with the outcome, because he's going to have a red available there for Jackson Page, unless the yellow has gone to his rescue, which I don't think he has. So this red is possible there for Page, if you can see enough of it, and I think he can. And even if he can't do it, he's going to have enough of the swerve there to try and get through that red to at least get it out of the pocket. I think he's going to have to play it with a little bit of swerve. But in the end, you had to play it with a lot of power there as well, and sacrificing their position on the next colour. He's going to be alright to take the yellow on, but when I say alright, he still can get the yellow in. Not going to say he's going to be able to get the cue ball down the table as well. And have himself lined up for the next shot in towards the red. And as I say, it was a very difficult route there for the cue ball to try and make his way through. 35 points now is the gap in between Jackson Page and Judd Trump. Not in the Welshman's favour. Still 91 points on the table. Pretty much deja vu from the previous frame. But of course, previous frame has seen the break of 51 points from Page to set him up for a battle on the last and remaining red. And once again there, it's a brilliant shot of the red into the left corner. The pure potting power and the pot success percentage is going to be really high up for the Page, especially ever since that opening frame disaster. But once again, their positional play ain't going to be too good there of a stat there for him. Because as he gets the blue in towards the right middle, tries to power the cue ball to have himself lined up for at least one of those reds on the lower part of the table. Catches the yellow pretty much full ball, and he's going to have the pathway of the cue ball stopped at that exact time. So just having a look to see if Page can actually sort of get through to that red in towards the left corner. He could have taken a shot on, but in the end, clearly realising that he's not in a position to be taking any of those risks, especially with him being still 29 points down in this frame. With 83 still being on the table. Nice little shot there for him though. Trump has to respond with, once again, potentially trying to split those reds from the main pack. But we all know what happened the last time he tried to do it. This time he tried to cannon the cue ball in towards the reds underneath the black spot. And it's actually worked out quite nicely there for him. He could have given a red away, but in the end, has the yellow to come to his rescue in between the cue ball and the actual red there. So try and power the cue ball in towards the red. I think he's going to have himself lined up for a nice little shot here. In terms of trying to get the red into the right corner pocket in a safe manner. Well, obviously couldn't do it, because as I say, it's a shot that you never seem to refuse as a professional, because it's one of those that you're not really sacrificing anything on. Jackson Page obviously thought that it wasn't the best outcome and the best solution. So just taking one more red out of the black ball cushion, putting it higher up the table, and getting the cue ball lined up in behind the bulk line once again. So 4 reds on the left-hand side of the table for Judd Trump now to try and take advantage of in terms of trying to get the pot in. And it is going to be the case there with the third closest to the left-hand rail. Once again, a brilliant chance that he managed to set up for himself there, to be fair. It was a bit one of those shots that if you don't make, it's probably going to be a chance to your opponent. In the end, it was made by Judd, and it's a brilliant long shot to get himself set up for a break here, which surely is going to prove to be the last one that he needs for a 3-1 lead. Now leading by 47 points to 9 here. And Jackson Page, well, has to probably think about some of those chances that he's had previously in the frame. You know, the one that actually was gifted there to him by Trump, but he only managed to have 9 points out of. As I say, his positional play really has been below average, but his pot success has probably been better than what Trump has managed to produce so far this evening. Ultimately, it's a scoreline. It's the thing that actually matters there for you. And, the scoreline still seems to be in a massive favour of Judd, especially if he just takes a couple of more of those reds in without losing the control of the cue ball, has to be said, because that's exactly what he's done here. Getting himself a bit short on this black into the right corner. So try and play through the cluster of the pink and 2 reds, but ultimately just focus on the pot for the black there, because the red is going to be there for him. So 51 points clear with 59 on the table. Ultimately, it's a frame ball now for him to try and take this red in towards the left corner. As just has himself lined up for this type of a shot, and potentially can try and take the other red away from the pink. Exactly what he's managed to do. Once again, played beautifully there by Chomp, showing just how much of the cue ball control he's got when he's playing well. And it is going to be another frame to Judd Trump here, because he's going to have a 58 point of a deficit, 51 on the table. So 2 snookers for Page. He needs to come back to the table right now, but with one more red disappearing, surely it is going to be a 3-1 lead to try and hold on to for Judd Trump, as he's got himself into 3 of the next frames that he can try and win to progress into the last 16 and become the first player to do so, unless Tom Ford manages to beat him to that line up against Chris Wakeland. And of course, it's finally the challenge of the highest break of the match by Chomp, as he gets a really tough red along the cushion nicely into the left corner. He's going to try and get the cue ball lined up for one more red along the cushion after this black. And once again, it's a decent effort there, but a bit too straight there for him. Have to play it with an awkward shot angle, and ultimately it is going to be the break of 44 points, but that's going to be enough there for Chomp to make it a gap of 3 frames to 1, as he is going into the frame number 5 there. So nice little break there for him to get that thing out of the way, and it is going to be Tom Ford that has actually managed to be the first player into the last 16 stage. What a performance has been for him against Chris Wakely. Has been struggling for form recently. You know, he's managed to lose out earlier on there at the China Grand Prix, and right now has been eliminated by the world number 22, the former snooker shootout winner. Wakeling really has been struggling for form heavily ever since that win of Florian Nussel there into the International Championship main draw. Lost out to Karen Wilson, Xiao Jinyon and Liu Hao Yuhao there on the previous occasion. And ultimately the only table that we're currently sharing the playing time with is going to be the Longshan Xiong against Yuan Zijun here, with it currently being the scoreline of 2 frames each. So nothing to separate the 2 Chinese players. And right now it is everything to separate the world number 1 and the world number 33. As, you know, that scrappy frame number 3 for Page was important, but ultimately it doesn't look like it's going to get him too much of a head start of a Trump in terms of us getting into the next stage of the tournament. Still a massive challenge there for Jackson Page here, as he's got himself into an awkward spot there by losing 3 of those opening 4 frames. Now has to win every single frame from now on to try and be the second player to progress into the last 16 stage, where he's going to meet the winner of Gary Wilson or Martin O'Donnell to potentially set up a Gary Wilson Judd Chomp clash as it stands here. Of course, that match is yet to be played, and he's going to be played tomorrow on table number 3, I would think. As we still wait for the world number 1 to return back onto the arena. Jackson Page has decided to stay in his cheat this time around. And, well, just has to wait there and has to wait for his chance. Wasn't quite as patient in the 4th frame. He had an early chance with Judd's misjudgment on a safety play, but in the end only managed to produce 9 points out of it. Has to do a lot better in frame number 5, as he's now looking to hold on to this Northern Ireland campaign and try and make it at least, well, sort of half as successful as it was for him at the English Open, making the quarter-final stage last time, beating the likes of Sean Murphy and Neil Robertson in the progress and coming short to Mark Selby at that time. Managed to get himself up the rankings and pretty much in the top 32, which would be very important for some of the massive ranking events yet to come there. The likes of International Championship, the likes of UK Championship, of course. The first Triple Crown event is only pretty much a month away from us right now. But it is not a month away there. A chance for Chom to get himself into the last 16. And what a way to start this hunt there for him. Gets the beautiful red in towards the left corner as he's got himself lined up for the brown. In towards the right middle there. So, brilliant shot there taken well by Trump. He's got himself lined up for this little bit of a dilemma here. Don't think he can go for this brown in towards the right middle without sacrificing a lot on this cue ball. So I think the logical outcome probably is going to be roll the cue ball in behind the yellow and try and put Jackson Page into all sorts of trouble here. Something that he didn't manage to do so far in the safety battles. You know, Page was actually probably winning more of those. And it was all about trying to make those chances work for him. It was something that he was actually unable to do. So just gets the cue ball in towards the lower part of the table. It's going to be short on the pace though. And as long as that red is not going to be available for Trump, I think it's going to be put back there for Page to try and take attempt number 2. Trump is actually considering taking this red on there, you would think. Just having a look at the plant as well. Yeah, so the red is not going to be potable. And it's all about if you can take the plant on here. I still think that, you know, you're not going to get anything of putting Jackson Page back there. And in the end, it looks like it is going to be a plant attempt from Chomp. And is he going to work there for him? Of course he will. With the way and the form that he's been showing recently, it's a brilliant shot there for him. And it gets him another chance here at the break. You know, 2 reds that he's actually managed to pot that were quite difficult, both of them. This time he's going to have himself lined up for the green. In towards its own pocket there. And getting himself 4 points on the board. So now 9 points clear. As he tries to see if it's going to be available there for him to get this red along the cushion there into the right corner. And have himself lined up for the black though. It's going to be a really difficult task for him to try and make this red stick. Because the room is going to be minor, but he does manage to do it. Brilliant shot there by Chomp. Gets himself on the black there. He can try and go for the pink if he wants to. But ultimately that's going to cost him some of that line for the next red. So has to probably take the risk with his black. And he'll be rewarded for this risk. Because he was 2 difficult shots for him to try take on into session. And right now he's got himself in a prime position to try and win this match at this current visit to the table, especially if he just manages to nail those positional shots there, which to be fair didn't manage to do at that time. And he always seems to be the pink here throughout the majority of this match. Gets himself into a bit of an awkward spot here and rolls the pink in comfortably though. This time recovered well in terms of the position on the next red. So he's now 24 points clear. Just has himself lined up for the next red into the right corner. So total points scored there, 284 by Judd Chomp And 136 by Jackson Page there. Highest breaks, obviously, as you can see. 53 for Chomp and 51 there for Page. Pot success for Chomp. He does say it's 92%, but, you know, from what we've seen so far, it probably doesn't really tell you the entire picture. 71% of a safety success and 78 for Jackson Page there. Probably does tell you a bit of the picture there at that time, to be fair. As Chomp has got one of the last available reds into the right corner to get himself, once again, that golden sort of break of 40 points that he managed to do in the breaks of 3 and 4, in the frames of 3 and 4. Ultimately was just a bit short there in frame number 3, but he got the job done in frame number 4 at the second visit to the table. Can he make this one a single visit to the table? And doesn't look to be the case though, because he tried to power the cue ball in towards a bunch of the reds, but unless he goes for the red in towards the green pocket, it's probably going to be a safety for him to try and play. You can try and go for the red with the rest there in towards the right corner, but once again, it just reminds you one of those shots that sort of, if you miss there, you're going to give the entire frame away, because barring the red quite close to the right hand cushion there for Page, all of those are actually available there for Chomp to try and take on. As Page just has to watch and wait there for his chance to hopefully come there. Chomp is going to cannon the cue ball into the red there and try and get it up the table. So potentially just free up and make sure that the top part of the table is going to be a danger zone there, because he's going to have a red right in the middle of it. So once again then, this time it's a break of 33 points after the 4 points given away there for him on a foul shot. So Page will try and take the cue ball into the top part of the table though. So clearly having the yellow in between the cue ball and the red that I mentioned previously could have been the danger zone. Nicely played there by Page, but ultimately he's got the pink right in amongst those reds. So the position that probably previously would have been perfect there for any one of the players, should they try and take advantage of it. As by the way there, I think Trump and the cameraman has managed to spot a brilliant plant that seems to be very straight in towards the corner pocket, and it's all about if Trump can actually manage to get his way into that plant. It's going to be a very interesting shot for him to try and take on, because he's taken a swerve around it, but ultimately I don't know how, but he's missed that one by quite some margin, and he's missed it into the wrong part of the pocket there. So, you know, it looked like the plant was on, but ultimately probably caught that one not in the best possible manner there for him. And of course, that is going to have horrible circumstance and consequences there for him. And I mean, that was if Jackson Page got himself perfectly on this blue. It's not quite getting the most of this cue ball positional sense. But, you know, the way the reds are actually spread out here, he's got 8 of those available, and 7 of them are probably in a perfect position there. So just try and roll this blue in, get the cue ball down the table there once again. And I mean, the beauty of the position for Page is though, he's got so many of those reds to choose from, and pretty much every single part of the table, you know, if he's going to send the cue ball sensibly there, he's going to have a red for you to try and pot there. One probably minor disadvantage is going to be the fact that the pink and currently the black are not in the best possible positions there for him. But as you can see, he's still making his way through the blue here, getting the cue ball on the wrong side of it this time, probably on purpose, to just try and eliminate that red. That would have been the danger zone previously there. And it's going to be a nice little cushion for Page for 6 more points if he takes it with the blue. Once again, has got the third most expensive colour lined up in towards the right middle. And still doesn't seem to run out of reds. And at any point, really, during this frame, the only minor difficulty could be that red in towards the right corner. It's a similar one that you've seen Shang Bin Yu miss as his frame ball. And it was a match ball at that time against Gary Wilson. But one thing I will say about Jackson Page, especially with his spot success, he's not Shang Bin Yu there. He's got a lot more experience. And I think he's also got a lot more sort of skill to it, and proven it previously against one of the best players. So he just has to make his way through the easy reds first to make sure he does have a slip up. At least he doesn't give away an easy position there to Chomp and make him work for it. But as I say, any mistakes from here will be a massive let off there. And a massive waste there from Jackson Page's point of view. Chomp obviously felt that that plant was unmissable there for him, which is why he's gone for it with a swerve shot as well, just leaving him even less of a control of the cue ball. But ultimately it is looking like a very similar sort of circumstance to the Anthony McGill clash, in comparison to probably, McGill took the opening frame, whereas Page had to wait until frame number 3 there for him, using all of the pocket at that time to get himself set up for the black one more time. So those 3 reds probably going to get him over the line here, as long as they're played with the expensive colours. And getting himself lined up for the first of those 3. Don't seem to be too happy with the angle he's got right here though. And I mean, you can see why. He was trying to free up the second red there, which I thought was possible, into the left corner. In the end, he's going to be a bit too close to that red, and having to breach over the pink as well, and just avoid the front jaw of the pocket. Nice shot there by Page. Going to cost him a little bit of positional sense in the next red, and it could be actually a perfect invitation to try and take that red away from the cushion here. Not necessarily textbook stuff, because you meant to take the easier reds away first, to make sure that you're not going to leave any invitation there to your opponent. But Page probably will have to go with a textbook here and try and have that red lined up in towards the left corner. So now it's a massive couple of shots now for him, and it's all about trying to get this black in. It's going to put him 20 points clear. So the red with one more black there is going to put him 28 points clear, with only 27 on the table, obviously. It's all about getting this red in, because the pace on the cue ball is going to get the positional sense on the black nicely. So have to be very careful of making and missing all of those jaws of the pocket. Has to place his hand a bit awkwardly here as well. But ultimately, he ain't going to be a problem there for Page. And it does look to be that we're at least going to have 6 frames here out of the possible 7. And Jackson Page managed to complete the first part of the task there with a 3-1 deficit to his name. But I think he's going to have himself snookered here marginally on this yellow. But ultimately, he's now 28 points clear with 27 on the table. So barring snookers, it is going to be a lead of Judd Chomp with 3 frames to 2 there. And if he was snookered, he managed to play around the yellow nicely and still get it into his own pocket there. So the highest break of the match by some margin there, 71 points. Was a nice little position given away there to Jackson Page, but ultimately he still has to make the most out of it, and he certainly did manage to do that. Could produce a total clearance of 93 points if he fancies it, but obviously didn't, with him missing the blue in towards the yellow pocket. And right now it is going to be a gap of 3 frames to 2 there, still in favour of Judd Chomp. But as it was against Anthony McGill, couldn't get over the line there from the first time of asking. Ultimately could do from the second time though. Can he try and repeat the history here against Jackson Page? Or are we going to go the distance with the world number 1 facing all sorts of pressure against the world number 33, the Welshman that finally does seem to get some of his game back and be playing some of his best snooker that we've seen in the early start to the second tournament of the Home Nation Series here. Barry Hawkins, meanwhile, has already started off against Aaron Hill, and started off with a nice little break there of 29 points and counting, as he's now very much anticipated favourite there to win the opening frame up against Aaron Hill. So very much looking forward to see the reaction of Judd Chomp, because he hasn't been textbook stuff there for him. Had to worked for it a lot more, with a lot more difficulty there at that time. But ultimately it is now a gap of 3 frames to 2 there that he's still got to his advantage. And just has to make sure that he avoids the decider there. You know, he's gone for the risky shot of the plant into the left corner. Probably was a shot that was worth taking on at that time. But if that shot comes up at him again in frame number 6, he has to make sure he turns it down. Because he can't afford to lose one more frame. Because when it's a decider and you're up against someone like Jackson Page that, you know, is going to be coming into that decider, winning 2 frames on the bounce, it's probably going to be a 50-50 of a frame. And who knows what's going to happen. We've already seen one decider featuring the world number 2. Don't think Judd is going to have this on his plan and his schedule. As we'll still wait for Page to return back to the arena. And then we'll get frame number 6 on the way there. As that is the case now, so nothing to separate the 2 players in terms of the safety play is something that I would say, and I think that's the reason, or at least one of those reasons, why Trump had to go for the plan quite early, because he obviously felt like, you know, he had a 38 points cushion at that time. Obviously wasn't enough in frames 3 or 5 there for him, and ultimately managed to build on that in frame number 4. But has been better stuff in terms of the performance there. And, you know, Judd has had a good little interview with the WST yesterday saying that, you know, he likes to play at this venue. And he's always looking forward to the second tournament of the Home Nation Series. But if he wants to keep playing in this tournament, he has to find a frame win on at least one of those 2 frames. And started off with a little bit of a shaky of a break-off. And, you know, gonna get the cue ball just above the bulk line, but still leaves the red away to Jackson Page. You know, he was similar to the one that he missed out on in frame number 4, I think it was. Certainly played that one with a lot more power. And is he going to give anything away there, Chomp? He's going to give a red away in towards the right middle, but that's not going to be too easy of a shot for Chomp to take on. The black has gone out of the game as well. So not going to be good news for either one of the players. That is going to be on the charge to have a frame winning break. And it's not going to be Chomp just yet, because, you know, he's tried to use as much of the pocket width as it was possible there for him. In the end, catching the jaw to the extent that, you know, the red didn't drop. And Jackson Page survives the early scare there. And it was a chance missed by each one of the players. Once again there, Page leaving it all there on the table and being quite lucky with the cue ball not being stuck at the jaws of the right corner or catching the black full ball, which has gone over the blue line. Still going to leave a red away though to Chom to take on. And I think he'll be very, very eager to try and redeem himself after missing that red in towards the right middle. Was a straightforward opener there for him. Now has to try and make it the hard way. Certainly applying a lot of topspin. And what a shot this is. Brilliant there and brilliantly cued by Chomp. And probably deserves a little bit of luck that he's not going to get here though. It's unlucky is probably the kindest way that you could actually describe it. You know, just if he missed that red, it would have been nicely on the blue there. Instead, as you try and take it in towards the yellow pocket. That is far from easy. Yep, and he was far from easy. I thought he's missed it, but he has actually made it. So, very much a surprise there for me, because I thought he caught way too much of the front jaw. In the end, it's still not going to be perfect on the red. Into the same spooky right middle pocket there for him. And this is a difficult shot there for him to try and actually judge the pace of the cue ball, to have it lined up for the ping. But I think he's managed to get an A-star on that task, because right now he's managed to get the red in, which wasn't easy, and he's still alive on this break of 7 points and counting as he makes the pink in as well. So 13 points clear, having well, really a lot of reds available there to him, and it's all about just trying to get those colours in the play. And I have a very nice little bonus of the referee, the fact that the pink is going to go on the black spot, and it's going to be used in the future shots, but of course for now has to try and screw back for the blue here, and its mission failed there by Chomp, because anywhere but there, realistically, he would have been alright on this blue. Take it in towards the yellow, but don't think you could try and take this blue anywhere really, apart from playing a safety out of it. And yeah, it's a waste there of a chance for Chomp, because A, he could have tried to play around the pink there, but I mean, unless he's taking this blue in towards the yellow pocket, I'll be very surprised if he is. I mean, what a shot this is. I mean, that is one of the best shots of the match now, because that was at the crucial time for Chomp, because, you know, he running himself out of position all those times against Jackson Page, and he manages to recover once again here with an absolute beauty of a shot from the rest. Basically had all the angle on that blue, and just has to try and get this red in to back the previous success up there. Getting the cue ball up the table though, and just losing a little bit of control there over the positional play as well. He's 20 points clear, and he's also on the brown, but you know, that was with the easy reds, and right now he has to probably get himself to a zone of some of the more challenging ones. And the way to do that is trying to pot the brown with some pace there, but it's not going to be easy there for him. But once again there, beautiful recovery, and even though he's not going to be perfect on this red there, in fact it's probably going to be a challenge there once again to get the cue ball on the next colour, especially if the pink is not going to be potable into the left corner. But this is a brilliant effort there from Chomp, and indeed he has to screw back on the cue ball, so mighty effort there for him. Try and get as low of the cue ball as possible, especially the cushion being in the way. But he does seem to recover now, pretty much to full extent. Especially if he gets the pink in towards the right corner, and he does manage to do it, so brilliant stuff there by Chomp yet again. He's now 31 points clear with 107 on the table. You know, if he just passes that curse zone of him with 38, 40 and 39 points previously, I mean, just as I talk about the curse, it was all happening for Chomp, and it's all happening not in his favour, just as he managed to settle into the break and misses an easy red, pretty much a sitter there in towards the right corner. And the same red is going to be playable there by Jackson Page. Of course, the little part of good news for Chomp is going to be the fact that he's actually managed to take majority of those difficult reds away from Page here, and he's going to have to do it the hard way. And is he going to be on any one of those ball colours? He is going to be on the brown, but the question is, has he got any one of those reds to try and go for, apart from the one he's currently sitting pretty much on the edge of that black ball area? And he will be scratching his head now, because he caught the black full ball there, sacrificed the position on all of those reds, and he's going to run himself out of position here as well. So, you know, the script was there for him. Chomp makes the break of 30 plus, and then it's up to the Jackson Page now. One of the occasions he managed to make the break of 51 points, and on the previous frame he managed to make it 75 points, and one of those he only managed to have 9 points at the visit to the table following Chomp's mistake, and that was the frame that managed and allowed Chomp to go 3-1 clear. And that was a frame ago now, but Page had to do better here. Ultimately has to settle for just a safety shot and trying to spread those reds as wide as he possibly can without leaving any invitation there for him, for Chomp. But ultimately I don't think, once again, that he can be too happy with the position of the cue ball. He's going to have himself on the back foot here at least, or potentially sat in his chair if Chomp manages to find an opener here. He's got a couple of reds to try and catch the thin edge there, to try and roll it in towards the right corner, but ultimately the red that he's missed is going to be covering and following the cue ball. But to be fair to Trump, he's managed to judge the pace of the cue ball really, really nicely there. So sacrifice the potting angle to try and make sure that he got the cue ball into a safe position. So opening a reds that much could be a mistake for Page. Well, no, I just thought it's a good thing for him because he's going to be the one playing catcher. But I just thought at that time it was going to be a risk there because, you know, he could have left the red there for Trump. But to be fair, with the way the cue ball has gone, probably wouldn't have cost him too much at that time. So Trump has to pay for his mistake with having a bit of a difficulty in a safety shot. And I think Page could have done better here, though. Once again, it has the tongue out of his mouth. Yeah, very aggressive. Yeah, as I say, but, you know, that's the way he's managed to win the 2 frames that he actually did win. And Trump doesn't seem to get the best of the cue ball in terms of the potting angles, but he does seem to get the cue ball in a safe position there. So twice he's gone for the red that could have been potted there, and twice he's missed that one by quite some margin. But also, on both of those occasions, he managed to get the cue ball into a safe position, as that shot is going to be a nice shot on one hand there from Page because he manages to get Trump into some sort of trouble, but it ruins the position of 2 reds there, putting both of them on the right hand cushion. Ultimately something that he would like to avoid here, keep the position as open as he can without giving an easy invitation there to Trump. And I think Judd will just try and take the edge of that red and send the cue ball up the table and just try and catch it as thin as he can. Nice shot there by Trump in terms of the reds, and even better on the cue ball's perspective. Going to be exactly on the ball cushion. So Page has to navigate his way through those reds himself. And, well, try and see for now what is actually available there for him. Can try and send the cue ball down the table and try and take that red in towards the right corner. But the black is going to be in the way, though. And had to make sure that he got the cue ball safer than that, though, because it's going to be another chance now given away to Trump. It's a shot in towards the left corner that he can try and take on with the rest. You know, the only disadvantage of the shot potentially could be the fact that, you know, if he misses it, could be in trouble himself. But I think with the angle that he's taken on the shot, he's probably not even playing it, and he wasn't. So Trump going the conservative way there, and trying to be careful with the way that he's doing things at the moment. Obviously not trying to go for the plant that, you know, seen him lose the frame on the previous occasion. This time trying to get the cue ball in behind the green. And covering up the left-hand side of the table quite nicely there. So Page has to just see. I mean, if he's going to try and roll up to the plant of the reds, I mean, he's actually looking off potentially going for the pot there, but don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're looking at the front jaw there. So this could be a tricky shot for Page because it looked, you know, it looks simple there from Trump, but yeah, it could be very effective there because it leaves only the right-hand side there for Page to try and deal with. Okay, I get what he was trying to look at. He wasn't trying to look for red to roll up to. He was trying to look for a red to try and play there, so take that red as the third one and try and rattle it in towards the right corner. Tough position for safety. I mean, tough position for safety. You know what they say? You may as well just take a chance there on the attacking approach. And he was very close, actually, to making it. And I don't think he's given away anything easy there to Trump. He may have a shot in towards the left corner. But still, I've seen those miss there, especially with the front jaw being so close to the red. But not for Judd Trump there. Nicely played in terms of getting that red. Judd, well, it was a bit of a do-or-die shot from Page. I get what he's saying, but, you know, when you get so close, I have to appreciate the effort. And ultimately, let's see what Trump makes out of this break of his. And it probably is going to be the mistake that is going to cost him dearly. But it's a wonderful shot by Trump anyway, because he still had to apply a lot of topspin to get himself lined up for the black, which was out of position. And he got himself into a position now, which is going to be sent all the rights flying. Yeah, what on earth was Page thinking? Well, do I go for it or do I not go for it? And it probably was a 51-49 there in terms of him actually going for it. I think, I'm not going to say it was the wrong decision, but I ain't going to say it was the right decision. You know, he made it, and probably was just one frames too many for him to try and actually win there. You know, you had to, obviously, I think another thing that he was trying to get himself to do it is, even if he gets himself with a chance when he's 30 points or so down, he needs to make sure he's got all of those reds available to him, and he would not have had that with the ones that Chomp had positioned on the right hand side of the table. So he obviously was trying to free up all of them into the open play and have himself a nice little free plant. And you know, it's the battle of plants really. You know, that's the one that lost Chomp the previous frame when he had a plant on to take into the right corner. And should be, yeah, definitely should be GG's now. And you know, ultimately Jackson Page managed to make 75 points out of it. And this time Chomp ain't going to need 75 points. He probably is going to need around 40 points maximum. But he's going to need the position on this red. A little bit better than that though. So, you know, he's 50 points clear now. Still 67 on the table. So he needs 2 more reds now, realistically. With 2 more colours. And he's going to be away here. But you could just see like a little twist in the tail here. But not on this particular shot. So he's now 51 points clear. Still 59 on the table. I mean, if he takes it with a brown, he should be alright there. Especially if he just leaves those 2 reds on the cushion and doesn't touch them just yet. Because that could be his backup option in case Page actually gets into the frame himself there. And yeah, Chomp, I think he was trying to get in behind that red for either left corner or left middle. In the end, he has to go for a rest shot here. In towards the right corner. And gets the cue ball. Probably rolls through it now. And tries to get himself lined up for a shot at the black there. In towards the left corner. So just play through this one. And just don't sacrifice too much on the red there. And that's nearly what he's done. It was very close with him missing that red. You know, probably Jackson Page had everything crossed there. Fingers on his hand and on his feet to make sure that red stayed out there, and he nearly did. It was very close there, but in the end it's still possible there for Page because he only needs 1 snooker at this stage, but he ain't going to be 1 snooker now because it is going to be 68 points to 5 in favour of Judd, so 63 point advantage. 3 snookers needed to tie and a double taken on for Judd Chomp. He's going to be missed though, so with it being the last frame, you would expect Jackson Page to still come out and try and do something about it. Overcut that one a little bit. Yep. But ultimately, still 12 points safe now. And, well, number one thing that Jackson Page has to do is make sure he eliminates 2 of those reds away into the corner pockets. And has to try and do all the main damage on the last remaining red, because that's going to have a free ball chance there to him. As long as that's out of the way, it's going to be game over there for Page, because he can't get 3 snookers on the yellow, no matter how hard you try, especially against the world number 1. It's just simply not going to happen. Ding Zhou has tried to do that up against Sean Murphy, but ultimately it is going to be a shake of the hand there from Jackson Page, because he didn't manage to take that red into the left corner, and it is going to be Judd Chomp to take himself into the last 16 stage, the second player to do that after Tom Ford. And what a match it has been. Similar performance in terms of his campaign up against Anthony McGill and Jackson Page there, and 2 good players being dispatched there by the ace in the pack. That is going to join Tom Ford as the second player in the last 16 to be confirmed to be playing at least 1 more match there. A good job from Chomp. He managed to limit the mistakes there, especially in the later part of the match, but ultimately it could only be 1 player to win this match, and it probably was the right player. You know, I think Jackson Page going 2-0 down to the world number 1 was always going to be the end of him, and in the end it was a great match, but ultimately he was won by Judd Chomp there, probably deserved, and we'll be looking forward to see more of him in the second tournament Home Nation Series. And steady, absolutely steady performance from the world number one. We'll be hoping for improvement though, because he has to be playing better than that if he is to try and get himself into the quarterfinal for the first time since the Shanghai Masters at the opening start of this season. For now though, that's going to be the end of the broadcast. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you around for more matches featuring some of the world's best players on the snooker tour. Take care.